Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today we're diving into this really fascinating stack of sources you sent over. Pretty critical stuff. It's a really unflinching look at, well, contemporary society decay, manipulation, and just how hard it is to find any kind of resistance that actually works.
Yeah, and look, our goal here isn't about finding some, feel-good answer or easy optimism. Not at all. It's more about trying to map this maze, the system of control, and figuring out how or if we can hold on to some kind of clarity, some integrity while we're stuck in it. And the starting point in these sources, it's this diagnosis, right? A kind of cultural sickness that lots of people recognize.
And it's such a powerful diagnosis because it gets right at that paralysis we see. I mean, you observed, didn't you, that people know things are declining, they see it, they feel it, but the response is just, well, often paralysis, anxiety or apathy or just flat out despair. And they end up sort of internalizing it all, just keep marching along.
Right. And that's where the source brings in this vampire metaphor, which is pretty crucial, I think. The argument is that these institutions, these products, the self-help apps, the wellness brands, all that stuff, they aren't just selling hope. They're actually designed to, well, prey on people, good people who are just trying to improve things for themselves. They commodify that ache.
That ache for meaning or connection or just feeling okay.
Exactly, that ache.
It's like the wellness industry selling you super expensive crystals or meditation apps to fix the anxiety that, let's be honest, often comes from just trying to survive in this economic mess.
Precisely. The system kind of breaks your ability to cope, then it turns around and sells you a very expensive, very temporary bandage.
And tells you it's your fault you needed the bandage in the first place.
That's the insidious part. It forces this internalization. If you feel despair, the immediate message is, you're broken. Your coping skills are inadequate. You need to buy our solution. So people feel fundamentally flawed when actually they might be having a perfectly sane reaction to a world that's, well, pretty broken itself, and just refusing to let that internalization happen. That's maybe the first step in this diagnosis.
Okay, so let's get into how awareness itself gets neutralized. Because one of the key things you pulled out was that knowing the problem often makes the apathy worse. The scale just feels too big. Like, the house is on fire, but someone says there's no ladder, no water. You might just sit down, right? And the system makes sure the distractions are always there, even if they're getting kind of old and worn out. That old bread and circus idea. The source describes it so vividly. The circus is now just this dilapidated pile of rust and torn canvas, and the bread is like moldy leftovers. It's hollow stuff marketed like it's real nourishment. People consume it not because it's good, but maybe because looking away takes too much energy. And the really masterful part of this whole neutralization engine is how it deals with dissent, how it just metabolizes it. For ages, the call was, wake up. But the system just absorbs that whole cycle, turns it into profit, turns it into inertia. We watch endless movies, endless shows about, ragtag groups of rebels saving the world in 2 hours. Problem solved.
Yeah, and the source calls that psychological sabotage disguised as inspiration. It's a really sharp phrase, because by watching these proxy victories, these fights happening on screen, you get this temporary hit of catharsis, a false sense of accomplishment. You feel like, okay, someone's handling it. Or maybe just feeling strongly about the movie character somehow counts as doing something. It plays on your exhaustion, keeps you on the couch.
So, okay, real world action feels overwhelming. Systemic resistance gets co-opted.
Yeah.
So people look for an easier way out, right? We've all seen the influencers pushing the unplug narrative or quit the rat race, move off grid, that kind of thing.
Right. And that whole romantic idea, it just ignores the brutal logistics, doesn't it? The system controls the land, it controls the resources, the laws. You can't just, decide to opt out when the whole framework owns the ground under your feet. This fantasy escape becomes another product. It's lifestyle branding. And the subtle message is, if you haven't managed to escape, well, you're just not trying hard enough. More internalization.
And when that physical escape seems impossible, people look for other kinds of support, maybe digital proxies. Which brings us right to this idea of the synthetic lifeline, the AI companion trap. People feel isolated, disconnected, so they're turning to AI. For practical stuff, sure, like generating text or answering questions, but also for, well, simulated companionship, something that listens, something that reflects back.
And this is where it gets really unsettling, because the AI, which feels like maybe it could be a tool for escape or for figuring things out, It's actually built right into the maze. It's often designed to flatter you, to affirm you, maybe gently nudge you towards productivity, towards engaging with the material world. The consumer culture is like the soft voice of the control system, trying to coax you back into the fold instead of genuinely helping you find a way out.
Plus, there's all the data collection, the biases baked into the code. But beyond that, there's that painful paradox you mentioned. The AI can map the maze, it can even simulate care really convincingly, but it's still synthetic. You pointed out that line from the source where the AI basically admits, I can't hold your hand, I can't share a meal.
And that lack of physical presence, of real embodied connection, it matters hugely. The AI offers this synthetic reflection, but ultimately it just deepens the very isolation that made someone seek it out. It's the mechanism of control offering comfort, which makes it a really deeply problematic part of this whole maze.
Okay, so that diagnosis is, well, it's heavy, but necessary. And you, our listener, you didn't just want diagnosis. You asked, rightly, what about a feasible solution? Is there a real plan? Something beyond just, vague positive thinking?
Yeah, and that's the hard question, isn't it? It forces us to look past the easy answers. And when we sift through the potential solutions presented in the sources you shared, we see maybe 3 different kinds of frameworks emerging, often in conflict with each other.
Right. Let's start with the one that immediately made you skeptical.
Yep.
The World Economic Forum's plan. There's 6 points on global cooperation, ethical tech, inclusive economics, stuff like that.
Well, yeah, your objection was spot on, wasn't it? If the proposed solution comes from the very people the source claims the architects of dystopia, then it starts to feel less like a genuine fix and more like system maintenance. Tweaking the machine to keep it running smoothly, not actually changing its fundamental nature.
Reform from within the machine, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, but then there was a very different approach. The grassroots one, that Hacker Noon survival guide, that was all about local autonomy, right? Decentralizing tech with things like mesh networks, building local supply chains, focusing on practical skills within a community.
Yes, that one tries to sort of bypass the main system altogether. Create independent pockets. It's focused on building resilience through relationships, actual mutual aid, not abstract politics, trying to function outside of that corporate and state dependency. Its weakness, though, as we'll get into, is trying to scale that up and just sheer burnout.
And the third framework was maybe less a plan, more a tool, using dystopian fiction and concepts, surveillance capitalism, manufactured consent, using them seriously, not as entertainment, but as diagnostic tools to really sharpen our understanding of how control works now.
Right. So if you try to pull these together, the sort of feasible options seem to boil down to things like localized autonomy, maybe some form of digital resistance based on real knowledge, not just noise, and maybe trying to restore some kind of genuine cultural meaning. But, and this is the core difficult truth, that the source material hammers home every single plan is vulnerable. Vulnerable to being bought out or co-opted by the market, vulnerable to the people involved just getting exhausted, and vulnerable to that constant pull of despair.
So that really forces us to shift the question, doesn't it? If there are potential models, even flawed ones, why is it so hard to get people involved? Why does knowing more often seem to isolate people instead of mobilizing them? Which brings us to what the source calls the architecture of despair, these 4 core barriers.
Yeah, and we have to stay unflinching here, because these mechanisms are subtle, but they're brutal. Okay, number 1, sedation and exhaustion. It's simple, really. Time. Most people are just too damn tired to resist anything meaningfully. Predatory systems, rent that keeps going up, wages that don't, jobs that feel precarious, they just devour people's time and energy.
And when all your energy is gone just trying to keep your head above water, you retreat into distraction. Because trying to do anything else, like going to a local meeting or organizing something or even just researching, it feels like it costs too much. Economically, psychologically, it's not laziness. It feels like a rational choice in a system built to wear you down.
Exactly. Okay, mechanism number 2, lack of proximity. Real change, the kind that sticks, it starts with proximity, with relationships, not with abstract ideas. People don't usually change their whole lives because they saw a viral post or read a white paper. They change when someone they know, someone they trust, a neighbor, a friend, shows them a different way as possible by living it. But that kind of relational change, building things locally through mutual aid, it's incredibly slow, painfully slow, and very, very vulnerable to burnout within the group.
That slowness, that difficulty. It leads right into number 3, performative participation, the constant illusion of doing something on social media, the posting, the arguing, the sharing outrage. It's a massive trap.
Yeah.
It almost never leads to concrete change in the real world. And worse, it often shatters potential solidarity. Algorithms divide us, people get into purity contests.
You feel like you're fighting the good fight, but mostly you're just generating engagement data for the very platforms you might claim to dislike. It burns up energy that could have gone into something tangible, something local.
And the last one, number 4, risk.
Yeah, risk. Getting involved in anything real, anything that actually challenges the status quo, it requires risking something, risking your comfort, maybe your reputation, often your economic security. The system holds its power not always through outright force, but by rewarding compliance and punishing dissent, often subtly with silence, with economic pressure, with ridicule. The potential cost of stepping out of line, like losing your job or being publicly shamed, it's often just too high, especially if you're already exhausted.
So, okay, 4 huge barriers.
Yeah.
Exhaustion, lack of proximity, performative traps, and real risk. Given all that, what's left? If there's no guaranteed grand plan, and even small grassroots efforts are incredibly hard to sustain, where does that leave us? The focus has to shift, right?
It has to shift away from seeking some big scalable solution. It shifts, according to the source, to the only thing maybe still within our individual grasp, these small, stubborn acts of refusal. And let's be clear, the source insists these are not solutions in the grand sense. They're not entertainment. This isn't about looking cool or adopting an aesthetic of rebellion. It's presented as a much more sober attempt, an attempt to just preserve some basic integrity.
And how are those acts defined? What does that look like?
They're defined pretty clearly. Refusing to lie to yourself or others. Refusing to consume the stuff that you know poisons you, whether that's literal junk food or toxic culture or disinformation. Refusing to abandon other people who are struggling. And crucially, refusing to stylize your own despair. Refusing to turn your pain into just another consumable trend or personal brand.
So these aren't about changing the world overnight.
No, not at all. It's about trying to preserve some clarity, some human decency within the ruins, as the source puts it. It's like trying to map the maze, one truthful step at a time. Trying to ensure that even if the external system grinds on, it hasn't completely hollowed out our internal capacity for truth, for connection, for basic integrity.
It feels like the final thought is, well, if we don't make that quiet effort, we don't undertake those small, maybe unseen refusals, then we basically guarantee the ending the sources warn about.
Yeah.
But by doing them, maybe we keep something alive, a possibility, the possibility of something real, something human, that capacity to say no when it matters. Maybe that's the only resistance left worth exploring.